Welcome back to Think About It, the podcast from Forward HR Consulting, where we explore all sorts of ideas that are shaping the future of work.
Mm-hmm.
And today,
Yeah.
I kind of want to dive into something that's been on my mind a lot lately.
Okay.
We're always told when it comes to developing new skills,
Right.
just do it.
Yep.
But is that really all there is to it? Is thinking really the enemy of action?
It's a really great question.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little more nuanced than just saying like thinking is good or bad.
Right.
The reality is there is a type of thinking that's absolutely essential when you want to get better at something.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Right.
So what kind of thinking are we talking about here?
Well, it starts with understanding that, developing a skill.
Right.
It isn't just about, repeating actions over and over again blindly. It's about, taking in information and learning and adapting and refining the way you do things.
So it's not just about doing, it's about thinking about what you're doing.
Exactly.
Got it.
And to kind of illustrate this a little bit better, let's think about the case of Yuki Kawachi.
Okay.
Do you know who this is?
I don't think so.
Okay, so he was called the Citizen Runner.
Okay.
And he won the Boston Marathon back in 2018
Wow.
while working a full-time job.
Oh, wow.
And he trained without a coach.
Really?
And athletic experts have actually suggested that, part of what made him so successful was his ability to think for himself as a runner.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So even in something as, physically demanding as marathon running,
Totally.
there's this element of thought and strategy involved.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So to kind of dig into this a little deeper,
Go.
Let's look at the work of a philosopher named Gilbert Ryle.
All right.
And he distinguished between two types of knowledge.
Okay.
He called them knowledge that and knowledge how.
Got it.
So knowledge that is basically factual knowledge. So for example, knowing that the Boston Marathon is 26.2 miles.
Right, just knowing the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then knowledge how
Yeah.
is about, knowing how to do something.
Right.
So knowing how to run a marathon effectively.
So knowing the distance is one thing, but knowing how to pace yourself and strategize, push through those, last few miles,
Totally.
that's a completely different type of knowledge.
Precisely.
Okay.
And Ryle, he argued against a concept called intellectualism, which basically suggests that skill is simply a matter of,
Right.
consciously applying thought to every action.
So every single step of the way you're thinking about it.
Exactly. And if this were true,
Right.
athletes would be able to explain, every step of their process.
Yeah.
But we know that's often not the case.
That's true.
Yeah.
I remember interviewing a professional golfer once
Yeah.
who had just sunk this incredible putt to win a tournament.
Wow.
And when I asked him how he did it, he just kind of shrugged and said, it felt right.
Yeah. Or take another golfer, Kimberly Kim.
Okay.
After she won a championship,
Yeah.
she attributed her success to a higher power rather than,
Wow.
any conscious strategy.
Really?
So experts, they often struggle to actually put their process into words.
Yeah.
It's almost like they experience a kind of expertise-induced amnesia.
Interesting. So if it's not just conscious thought driving skill, what is it?
Well, that's where Ryle's concept of self-teaching comes in.
Okay.
And it's this idea that developing a skill involves constantly adapting to whatever challenge you're facing in the moment.
So even in something like running,
Yes.
which might seem like just putting one foot in front of the other,
Right.
there's actually a lot of self-teaching happening.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Think of it like solving a logic puzzle.
Okay.
Skilled action is sort of like creatively working through this problem.
Right.
You're constantly adjusting based on the feedback that you're getting.
Okay. I'm starting to get a clearer picture of what self-teaching actually looks like.
Yeah.
But how does this play out in the real world?
Right.
Like with Kawachi, our marathon man.
Yes.
How did self-teaching contribute to his success?
Well, let's take his training plan as an example.
Okay.
So Kawachi, he followed a very unique high-intensity plan that worked for him,
Right.
but would likely lead to burnout for many other runners.
Right, of course.
And this highlights something really key about self-teaching.
Okay.
It's about figuring out what works best for you
Right.
based on your own individual needs and the feedback that your body is giving you.
So it's not about blindly following someone else's program.
Exactly.
It's about creating a personalized approach.
Yes.
Got it.
And this principle of self-teaching, it applies not just to, the overall training plan,
Right.
but to every aspect of running.
Okay.
So even during a race, something as seemingly straightforward as even pacing,
right,
which is, considered the most effective strategy, still requires constant mental adjustments based on, your energy level, how the weather's feeling and, how your competition is doing.
So even when you have a plan,
yeah,
there's still this constant need for active thinking and adaptation happening in the moment.
Exactly. It's like you're having this ongoing dialogue between your mind and your body.
Huh.
You're constantly learning and adjusting as you go.
This is really eye-opening.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how self-teaching is about so much more than just mindless repetition.
Absolutely.
It's this really dynamic process of thought and action working together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to illustrate this a little bit further, let's consider another aspect of running, which is form.
Okay.
So focusing on, good form is a perfect example of self-teaching in action.
Okay.
Because it's about developing a feel for efficient movement, almost like you're learning a new sensation.
It's like your body is learning how to move in a way that feels right and works best. But it takes time and attention to develop that awareness.
It's not about mechanically, following a set of rules.
Right.
It's about developing this deep understanding of how your body moves and what feels most efficient.
Yeah. This is really making me rethink how I approach learning new things. Not just in running, but in all areas of life.
And that's exactly what we're hoping for, because these principles of self-teaching, they're not just limited to physical skills like running.
Right.
They can be applied to anything you're trying to develop, whether it's learning a new language or mastering a musical instrument or even just, succeeding in your career.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to explore how we can apply these principles to other areas of our lives.
Me too.
This is really exciting stuff.
It is. So we've been talking about this idea of self-teaching as this really crucial element in skill development, this constant back and forth between thinking and doing.
And it's really got me thinking about those times where I've struggled to learn something new.
Right.
And I'm realizing maybe I wasn't approaching it with the right mindset.
Yeah, that's a really common experience.
Yeah.
Ryle actually saw this self-teaching as a sort of middle ground between two extremes of thought.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Okay, so on one hand, you have that intellectualism approach, where you're trying to consciously think through every single action.
Right.
Like if you were learning to play the piano, you'd be overanalyzing every note.
Oh, yeah.
Every finger movement.
Every single thing.
It would be exhausting.
That sounds exhausting and probably counterproductive.
Exactly. It's like trying to run a marathon by analyzing the physics of every stride.
Right.
It's just not how our brains are wired to learn these really complex skills.
Right. So that's one extreme.
That's one end of the spectrum.
Then what's on the other side?
So then on the other side, you have that just do it camp, where thinking is seen as the enemy of action. They say, just clear your mind, let your instincts take over.
Which sounds appealing in a way.
Right.
Like just letting go and flowing with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is you can't really just turn off your brain completely. You still need to have some awareness, some conscious engagement to actually learn and improve.
So you're saying both extremes have their pitfalls.
Exactly. And that's where self-teaching comes in.
Right.
It's this sweet spot between overthinking and blindly doing.
So it's about finding that balance between being present in the action, but also being able to step back and reflect on what you're doing.
Precisely. It's about being mindful, but not over-analytical.
Okay.
Engaged, but not overwhelmed by thought.
This is starting to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm seeing how this applies not just to running, but to so many other skills as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's say you're learning a new language. The intellectualism approach might have you obsessing over grammar rules and vocabulary lists.
Just memorizing everything.
Exactly. Yeah. While the just do it approach might throw you into conversations you're nowhere near ready for.
Right. Just jump in the deep end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Both of which would likely lead to a lot of frustration.
Right, of course.
And discouragement.
Both of which would likely lead to a lot of, frustration and discouragement.
Exactly. But with self-teaching, you're finding that middle path.
Yeah.
You're studying grammar and vocabulary, but you're also actively using the language.
Yeah.
Even if it's just simple phrases at first.
So you're constantly testing yourself, getting feedback.
Yeah.
And adjusting your approach as you go.
Precisely. And that's what allows you to make real progress over time.
This is so insightful. It feels like a light bulb has gone off in my head.
I'm glad to hear it because I think this concept of self-teaching, it's really key to unlocking our potential in any field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how can we actually apply these principles of self-teaching in a practical way?
Right.
Whether we're trying to, learn a new language or improve our skills at work, or even just become better cooks.
That's a great question. And it really comes down to shifting our mindset
Okay.
away from just focusing on that end goal.
So instead of being fixated on, running a marathon or getting that promotion,
Right.
we should focus more on the process itself.
Exactly. Because the truth is, the journey of learning and growth, that's where the real magic happens.
Right.
That's where we actually develop the skills and the resilience that will ultimately lead us to success.
So it's about embracing the journey.
Yes.
Not just the destination.
Right. It's about finding joy in that process of learning.
Yeah.
And not getting discouraged by setbacks or mistakes.
Because those setbacks are actually valuable learning opportunities.
Exactly. They're providing you with feedback that you can use to refine your approach and get better.
So it's not about being a know-it-all.
Yeah.
It's about being a learn-it-all.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about adopting a mindset of continuous learning and improvement.
This is so inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on skill development now.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of self-teaching.
Yeah.
It empowers you to take control of your own learning and become your own best teacher.
Okay, so we've talked about the mindset shift.
Yes.
But what are some concrete steps we can take to become better self-teachers?
That's a great question, and that's one we'll definitely delve into after a quick word from our sponsor.
All right, stay tuned. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today talking about self-teaching.
We have.
And how it can really revolutionize the way that we think about skill development.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept.
It is.
And as promised, we're going to wrap things up by giving you some concrete steps you can take to become a better self-teacher. Right.
No matter what skill you're trying to master.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's dive in.
All right, so step 1.
Yeah.
Set clear and specific goals for yourself.
Okay.
So, before you even start,
Right.
think about what are you actually trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And what does success look like to you?
So don't just say, I want to be a better cook.
Right.
Or I want to learn Spanish.
Exactly.
Be specific about what that means to you.
Yes. So maybe your goal is to be able to, cook a 3-course meal for your friends.
Right.
Or to have a basic conversation with a native Spanish speaker.
Right.
Whatever it is,
yeah.
Make sure that goal is something that you can actually measure.
Right.
And track your progress against.
Okay. So once you have that clear goal in mind, what's next?
Right. So the next step is to break that big goal down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Right.
This makes the process feel less overwhelming, and it gives you more opportunities to get feedback along the way. So, for example, if your goal is to run a marathon, you wouldn't just start running 26 miles on day 1.
Exactly. You'd break it down into smaller goals, like running a mile without stopping.
Right.
Then a 5K and a 10K and so on.
So it's about creating a series of stepping stones that gradually lead you towards that ultimate goal.
Precisely. And as you're working towards those smaller goals, that's where the real self-teaching magic comes in.
Okay.
This is where you really need to be present in the process, paying attention to what's working and what's not.
So it's about more than just going through the motions.
Right.
You need to be actively engaged.
Yes.
And paying attention to the feedback you're getting.
Exactly. And ask yourself questions like, what felt easy? What felt challenging? What strategies seemed to work well?
Right.
What could I have done differently?
So it's about becoming a student of your own process.
Yes.
You're analyzing your experiences and extracting those valuable insights.
Precisely. And then based on those insights, you can start to adjust your approach.
Okay.
Maybe you need to tweak your training schedule or find a different study method.
Right.
Or even seek out some extra guidance from a mentor or a coach.
So it's a constant cycle of doing, reflecting, and adjusting.
Exactly. And the more you practice this cycle, the better you'll become at self-teaching.
Right.
You'll start to develop a deeper understanding of your own strengths, your weaknesses, and your learning preferences.
It's almost like you're developing a meta skill.
Yeah.
The skill of learning itself.
You could say that, and that's a skill that will serve you well throughout your life, no matter what new challenges you face.
This is so empowering.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how self-teaching can unlock a whole new level of potential within us.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about embracing that journey of continuous learning and improvement.
So next time someone tells you, just do it.
Yeah.
Remember, there's a whole lot of thinking involved in doing it well.
Absolutely.
And the best part is you have the power to become your own best teacher.
You do.
So go out there and explore the world of self-teaching.
Yes.
I guarantee you won't be disappointed.
You won't.
And if you're looking for more resources and support on your skill development journey, be sure to visit the Forward HR Consulting website.
Yes.
We're here to help you unlock your full potential.
Absolutely.